It's 9. Let's do it. Hey, friends. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11. I feel like there's one more person that we need. And I feel like it's sad that I have. Yeah. All right, well. What can one do? What can one do? Hi. Midterms. Right? How's that going? Good. It's got a new mug, and I'm wondering if it has a crack is what's up. How does it have a crack already? 2 cracks. Ugh, that's grim. But it's super fun and cheesy, and it's a moose. But apparently it wasn't set up well to handle hot liquids. So that's pretty important for mugs, you know? And there's a lesson to be learned there for all of us. Make sure your websites can handle hot liquids. And by hot liquids, I mean that people put stuff into your website that you're like, that's bad stuff. You should actually handle that, right? Your website should be robust enough that it can, like, you shouldn't just have a cold water mug. You should be ready to deal with whatever anyone throws at it. So today's topic is slightly going to be on that in a connection I just made just right now. We're going to be talking about user authentication. Now, it's kind of, there's 2 things that are funny about that. Not funny, haha, more like funny, huh? Which is that week 2, day 4 is also user authentication. And the other part is that you're doing your midterms, and the one thing that we explicitly told you was don't do user authentication. Or at least don't do like a whole login form. Do user authentication, just don't do like the form and the things and the what's it. So while you are working on a project whose salient features are that it's just enough to show, I'm going to be talking about basically whose salient features are that you're going to use it in a context where you control everything, so you can show this ideal path. I think I'm going to talk today about a less than ideal path and how you deal with that. There's this thing called the UI stack, and it's an article I'm going to put into my How to Fix a Bad User Interface. This thing is a really great article that I really recommend you look at. I didn't just realize who was missing until I realized that Franklin was missing. Where's Frank? So, yeah. All right. So yeah, and it talks about the UI stack, and what basically it is that you guys think of your app as in the ideal path, right? Your wireframes are probably like, oh, this person, they're going to see this. When someone talks about Twitter, they generally talk about Twitter in terms of like, oh, you're following people and you have tweets and you've written tweets and you got to get their feedback on your tweets and yada yada yada, right? Those views are about like when you've already done everything and you're kind of there, right? Kind of like how, like after a while you'll have experience and you'll have a job based on your experience and you'll get more experience based on that job and it'll be part of the virtuous cycle, right? But that's not the way things actually look, right? That's not how things actually work. How they really work is that you have different states of things. So this is, we have, now wishing I hadn't zoomed out, the blank state, the loading state, the partial state, the error state, and the ideal state, right? The blank state is that you may not even be loaded up yet. You may not have had anything yet. Like when you go to the page, it should be like, hey, I don't know you. Hey, buddy, who are you? What's your deal? Huh? What are you all about? Right? And then loading state is also like you may be loading stuff. You want to let people know like, hey, we're loading stuff. Partial state is like, oh, you're 50% of the way there and making your profile or something like that, right? Error state is something's gone wrong, and we have the ideal state. So your app kind of has a bunch of different lives and it has to be ready for like dealing with these, right? You are going to be demonstrating an ideal state app after midterms, which is good. But when you are actually out in the real world, you want your apps to be robust. You want your apps to actually have some error handling. You want them so that they're, not just cold water mugs. So that's kind of what I want to talk about, is presenting that. So basically, I'm going to take one feature and come on, you two. I'm going to take one feature and just web dev the hell out of it. All right? So let's open up an incognito window. Don't worry, we're fine. And take a look at LinkedIn. So what do you see here? This is the blank state of LinkedIn. What do you see? A register form, a log, there's a sign in, right? Let's go to the Facebooks. Same sort of thing. Right, sign up, log in. These sorts of things. There's another one. Instagram, right? Log in with Facebook, sign up. So for these, they're part of their big thing is like, I can't really do much with you until I see who you are. You can see the Twitter feeds of other people. That's fine. I'm not going to redirect you to this. But at the same time, pardon me, my phone is ringing. And now my phone is not ringing. That's how phones work. Sorry. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a site that has this. Okay. Is that? Let me know when the font's big enough. Are we cool here? All right. If not, you can just watch the video later. You could be watching the video now if you want to. Make directory app. Sure. Right. I want to start a Express app. What do I have to do? Yeah. And before I install anything, it's npm, isn't it? And then npm add express. And while we're here, we may as well get body parser. And also while we're here, we may as well do do I want to start with cookie parser? I don't think it matters so much. So I'm just going to start with cookie parser because I think that'll be a little more visible during lecture. For lecture reasons. Right? Morning, Franklin. Good to see you, buddy. How you doing? Oh, and EJS. That'll be another one. NPM. Ooh, a new minor version of NPM is available. NPM add EJS. Morning, Hilarious. How you feeling? Super. Yeah. So now we have that. Let's go into this. Let's make a server.js. Const app equals, const express equals require. Oh, I am not typing well today at all. This is going to be a long day. Oh, Franklin. Are you snarling at Hillary? She's so nice. Hillary, what did you do to Franklin? All right. App.listen. Just say 8080 for right now. And I'm going to have a callback function here. It's just going to say okay. I'm at it, I'm gonna add ESLint so that I have ESLint and so that I don't have to code like a person who knows how to code. You know, stuff like ESLint, a lot of these disciplines, you think I have them because I want to work harder and I'm disciplined. No, because I'm very lazy. And ESLint is the most fantastic lazy, like, thing. It's lazy and it's a thing, is what happens. Bin / yes. Where are we at? Dot bin. Right, ESLint. Init. I'm just going to answer questions about my style. Oh, ES 2018. Thank you, please. Nope. I'll be running in the just Node, not the browser. To use JSX, not today. Use spaces, single quotes, Unix. Yes. JavaScript. I have a feeling I'm also going to have to go over here and be like, ESLint. Yeah, I'll have to fix this one. Just set it to 2. And I'm not sure if there's any other ones that I'm kind of going to be thinking about. But yeah, console log listing on unexpected console statement for nerf. But we're going to leave that there for the moment. But yeah, nodemon server.js. Cool, we're listening on 8080. I think we're going to be spending most of our time in an incognito window today. So localhost. Is there anyone, I'm going to be very careful how I phrase this. Is there anyone not clear on why we use incognito windows or how we use incognito windows as developers? For developer reasons. Don't worry. Your giggles and knowing glances are not being recorded. Does anyone know why? Why would it be important? Why would it be helpful? No cookies. No cache. No anything. Right? So you get to have kind of a clean slate and let's keep on setting over. I've been working I'm working a contract that has like a registration thing. So I've been having to do every single time I test something out. I have to open I have to close all my incognito windows, open an incognito window, run it. Yeah. Yeah, it creates a kind of a fresh environment for like none of your other authentication stuff is happening here. And that's the last I'm going to say about that. So, localhost 8080 cannot get / This is a sign that this is working, right? This is Express's magic here. So what do I want to do? I want to have app.get /. And I guess recres, right? And yeah. So I want to be able to render some stuff. So I'm going to say app.set view engine EJS. And that tells Express that we're using EJS for our rendering. So when we say res.render, it'll do it however EJS thinks we should do it. Views index.ejs HTML5 all the stuff. I'm going to bring in Bootstrap because I'm lazy. Welcome to, what's this app, by the way? What app are we making? What name are we? Tweeter.
Big app.
Big app. Yeah, face tweet wins. All right. So I did like big apps, and I cannot lie. So now we have the app get /. Right now this doesn't have anything in it. I'm going to say get bootstrap.com. Get started here. And I'm going to add this here. I will say, just as a reminder, so I'm bringing in a CSS library. If I had some custom CSS of my own, where would I put that in relation to this, before or after? After, right. Yeah, because we want to think of it as we are extending on Bootstrap rather than Bootstrap overwrites everything we did. Yeah. Okay. Face tweet. Let's just do an H1. Welcome to Face tweet. And then what we're going to do here is, there we have that. I'm also going to put that in a, whoa, too much. Nope, not container. So that at least it is like off the edge a little bit. Right, welcome to Face Tweet. Then we're going to do a couple of rows and columns. And then let's just say for right now, we're going to have H2 of sign in and register. Is that not in the... Nope, it's not in the container. Okay. Now the stuff you're seeing me write here is part of me having done a lot of stuff with Bootstrap over time. And for me, the benefit of that is that, okay, I am able to generate just a bunch of stuff really quickly. One of the things I used to do quite a lot of in previous jobs was take a Bootstrap theme. Let's look at the Get Bootstrap themes here. Something like this. So I'd have this, and then I'd be able to just generate some. I'd make a blank one of these, generate some stuff, and people could see like, oh yeah, I want my dashboard to look like that, or I want my admin thing to look like that, or I want my email, whatever, to look like that. If you find yourself where you're like, I'm not really a designer, unless you're a fantastic designer, there's a good chance that you're going to be implementing somebody else's designs anyway, right? And with this, you already have stuff, and now it's easy to kind of just get making things. Personally, I have an eye for design. I'm not a great designer. Anyone ever heard of the taste gap? It's where you're trying anything, like if you're a photographer, right? And you look at a bunch of photography, you really love photography, you know a lot of photographers, right? You really get into their work, and you're like, I want to be a photographer. And you start taking pictures, right? And what happens? Your pictures are crap. They're just terrible. I'm making eye contact. I shouldn't be making eye contact. I don't know, man. Maybe your Instagram's fantastic. But you start taking pictures and they're kind of crap, right? Or you're like, oh, these are good, but then you realize you've hit a plateau of like pictures of sunsets and beaches, right? And you realize you know what good stuff is, and because you have great taste and little skill, it's like, oh, I'm never going to be able to get there because I'm here, and I know I'm here, and I know my stuff sucks because I know what this is, right? And the taste gap is like being able to make all the bad photos until you get there, or write bad songs, right? And so the same thing can happen with design, where it's like, I have a good eye for design. I know I'm not going to be able to make it quite as easily. So what I do is either I go for a really simplistic, minimalist style, kind of like if you want to do music, just kind of go the Bob Dylan route and just have whatever it is that Bob Dylan has. Not the ability to sing or play guitar, I'll tell you that much for free. So with this one, this is kind of my cheap trick. This is my Bob Dylan thing. This is my 2 chords on the guitar and the thing, right? Is just doing this. And it looks good enough. I know that I have made good product the same way that Bob Dylan keeps making great music, despite the particular parts that go into the music, right? I know a lot of people who are really great guitarists and singers who make terrible music, right? I've seen a lot of that. So, anyway, side note. That is good. So yeah, so we have that. What I want to do is I want to start making forms, components, forms, right? So I want to start making these guys, which I'm going to do. Welcome to FaceTweet. Within my this here, I'm going to put this form. Ba, 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 ba. We're kind of over. No, I feel like, yeah. I wish I had an auto indent for that. Okay, now we have all this, right? And then I'm going to basically copy that stuff over to the register. Because I am busy. Right? So when you register, I guess if we're doing Tiny App, it's like these are the things, right? But we may want a few more things on the register side, and so I'm going to put a couple more things on the register side. And then I don't really think we need that help on the... In fact, let me make this into partials because I feel like I'm already getting into the weeds. For me, when I take a look at the code, and it's like I can't tell at a quick glance what's going on, that's time to break that code out. So I'm going to... Did I make a folder or a file? I think I made a file, but I wanted to make a folder of partials. And I'm going to say login form. .ejs and register form .ejs. Okay, and I'm going to go here. I'm going to grab everything that was in the sign in stuff. Form. Cut that. Put that there. Over here, I'm going to say, how do I include? Let me double check that. Yeah, I think it's include. I can't remember if it's an equal or a... Well, we're going to find out because I'm not too proud to Google. Oh, it's one of these guys. You'll likely want to use the raw output tag with your include to avoid double escaping the HTML output. Yeah. So, include, and then partials / login form. And God willing, we have all our ducks in a row. There should be no difference. That was exciting. That's the funny part about refactoring, code refactoring, is that you just like, okay, it looks like this. Work. Same thing. Success. Or like those times where you're like, oh, I got this error. Shoot, I got this error again. Fix this. Oh, cool. Different error. Go team. And now you're like, but was this error like behind that error or before it? Like, did I just make a new one that I'm going to clear out and then get to the same thing? Or did I clear that other one out and I get to the... We'll never know. Same thing here. And this is going to be register form. Register form. Huzzah, no change. So, let me start editing this login form just a bit. For one thing, I don't need that help for the time being. Okay. enter email, password. Man, this seems a bit wordy in terms of all the things, so I'm just going to take out that placeholder text. Email, password, right? This sounds like a thing. We have labels. I'm going to use the labels. Doesn't mean you should always use the labels. Doesn't mean that placeholders are bad. I just find that placeholders, I'll more likely use them to say, like, must be a blah blah blah, or a example blah blah blah, right? It might be more useful. I don't know. But I want to let you know when what you're hearing is me. Is kind of the more authoritative, like this is kind of the way you have to do it, and I want you to hear when I'm talking about my opinion. So my opinion is I usually use placeholders sparingly when you have labels already, right? I don't know what check me out means. Maybe that's a keep me logged in. I don't know. Okay, so we have email and password. Let's go to our server.js here. And what I want to do is I want to start making the bare necessities for a user login experience. We did promises, right? We're cool on promises. We're comfortable with promises. We're fluent with promises. I guess you'll get them eventually. It's a promise joke. Snuck that one in there. Right. No, fair enough. So what I want to do is I'm going to make, you guys have seen me make, that's in views. Y'all have seen me, that's in, what that here, yes. Make callback-based data helpers, right? So now I'm going to make promise-based data helpers. And yeah, users data helper. .js. Let's make that happen. So what I'm going to have is function get user by, or sorry, I guess, yeah, get user by email. It's going to be a thing. Email. Function get user by ID, and then function authenticate user, email, and password. So one of my things in the last was that, like, okay, let's say you had a function that you put in some parameter 1 and 2, and you return something, right? The callback version would be you put param 1 and 2 and a callback, you return nothing, and then you would perform the callback on the result, right? So this is a promise. And now it's a little bit more like we take out that callback, we just return a promise of a thing. And the promise represents, it's a future box. It's a box that contains the future, right? That seems like a weird thing to say. But in the same way that an array was like one value that contained many values, was just like you had one bag, but that bag could have an unlimited number of live cats. Then cats, just in general, I suppose, live or otherwise. Then it's got dark like quickly. The same thing with the promise is that it could, like, it contains, you can think of it as a box that contains the future, right? Yeah, think about that one for a moment. Okay, user. I'm going to make actually, you know what I'm going to do? A little bit of get. Like, actually, let's keep track of what we're doing here. Get init. Okay, that's fair, I suppose. npm, or not npm add, touch git ignore. Git ignore app, node modules, because. And I'm going to say here, git status, git add the .eslint.rc, git add the .git ignore, git add the package lock, git add the package.json, git add server.js, git add views everything, git commit initial commit with basic index view. Sick. All right. Now, you'll notice I left out the user data helper. Let's actually make that now. So I have these functions. They don't do anything yet. I am going to have, I guess, const users equals an array. And let's put in a user real quick. ID is alpha 1234 Zulu. Name. How about username? Joel. Email. Joel at joel.joel. What else? Password. Joel. We're just going to use plain text passwords for right now. So get user by email. We are expecting this to return a user eventually. But if we were doing this with the database, I mean, yes, that would be returning a user, but we would be doing that asynchronously, right? So because I know I'm going to be using asynchronous methods eventually, I'm just going to use them now. Fair enough? So what I'm going to say here is get user by email is const found user equals users dot find. I'm not sure if you guys remember users dot find. It's just an array method. It takes a tester callback, and the first thing that matches this tester callback is what we send. Otherwise, it's undefined. User dot email equals email. Return promise.resolve found user. Now, if I wanted to, I could put in a delay timer here. I often do that. Put in a delay resolve. That just waits like a second and then returns the user just so we can see what that looks like. I'm going to leave that be for right now. Same thing here, where user.id is ID. Promise resolve found user. And then here we're going to say return get user by email dot then, right? Because we have to chain callbacks like this. Yo. Okay, promise dot resolve. The resolve, it's a static method of promise. So that means it's kind of like math.max, where there's not a math object. It's just, yeah. And so what promise.resolve does is it takes in your value and returns you a promise that will resolve with that value immediately. So if you're like, I have a value and I need to turn it to a promise of something, there's that. There's one like it, and that is promise.reject. If you wanted a promise that was always pending and never actually resolved, you could use just new promise and then not do anything. Okay, found user, if found user, and if found user and found user dot password equals password, return found user, otherwise return undefined. So, does this make sense to anybody?
Yeah, I'm not sure where you're checking the password.
Right. So right now we're doing plain text passwords. But what this is doing is, okay, I'm going to get the user by email, and then .then. So this is a chaining Here I'm doing a synchronous transformation to chain. So I'm just taking an asynchronous value, doing a synchronous transformation of that value, and then like, I kind of liken it to, if you can think of like making coffee. Making coffee is the brewing of the coffee is an asynchronous action. You don't have any control over how it goes. There's no thing. But then when it's done, you can actually take agency yourself and be like, okay, now I'm going to pour in the milk and I'm going to do the thing and I'm going to put in the coffee. I'm going to put it in the coffee cup first, and then milk, and then sugar, right? And then you're like, you've taken a more raw coffee thing and transformed it yourself into something else, which is what we're doing here. The transformation in particular is that we are transforming it into either a found user, if everything's okay, or undefined.
So that when you're doing .then found user, that found user is the entire user.
Yes.
So you're just doing the whole.
Then I'm doing a little check, yeah. All right, so this is enough for us to start with. We'll need create user eventually. But let's go back to our server.js. So I'm going to say, maybe down here, const. Should I just bring in the data helper? I'll bring in the data helper. This data helper equals require lib data helper, right? And then here I'm going to say, let's do an app.post to login. Res. Now we need to actually like do our authentication stuff. So I'm going to say const cookie parser equals require cookie parser. App.use cookie parser. I don't have a string, which is fine. I guess I can put in a secret here. My mother thinks I'm a lawyer. So yeah, so the secret can be like how the cookie gets encrypted, but I don't actually want that right now because I just want to see the cookies by themselves for lecture purposes. If this were real, I'll be doing a session, and later actually we'll do a session. But a couple of things here. I'm going to say, okay, so we have the login, right? We're getting the login. And that means that on the body, which I need to now do also body parser, const body parser equals require. Well, I say, you know, like, okay, let's do some stuff with the body parser. But I'm also like, you know what? It's been a while. I've written a lot of code and haven't seen anything happen yet. And that gives me tummy rumbles. And so this is a good time for me to be like, well, let me see what I actually do get. It could also be the coffee. I'm pretty sure this tummy rumbles is from. So I'm going to do a console log rec.body and just res.redirect to / Okay. So let's try this again. Oh, and of course I need to actually send the form to do something. So I'm going to go to my login form and say, besides, nope, that's not what I wanted. I need to make this form perform a post request to /login. What do I need to do? Method post. /login, right? And this is going to, on success, perform the get redirect, yada, yada, yada. So we now have that. Email address, joel@joel.joel, password, well, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but should do that. So then I'm going to say submit. And we have nothing here. Over on this side, we would have seen nothing. We see an empty object, and that's because none of these have names. See, this is why I'm glad I checked. it needs a name to be able to see what actually comes through. When you're doing forms, names are really important. So let's try this again. Joel. And then we have that email, Joel, password Joel. Hey, buddy. How's it going? Not bad. Not bad. You doing some bootstrap forms? No, getting people to sign in? Huh? Keeping track of their information? It's fun. Okay. Right. So now I know I know what I'm getting in terms of information. We've all done this dance a few times. I can go to my server JS here. And what I'm going to say is that, okay, I have a rec.body.email and rec.body.password. And in fact, I'm going to say const email equals rec.body.email, const password equals rec.body.password. Or I can write something, I can write a bit of ES6 beauty to do that in one line, which is just const email password equals rec.body. Right? That below is the same as those two commented lines out. Right? And what I'm going to do is I am going to say users data helper dot authenticate user by email and password. And you can see here in my documentation, it is returning a promise of type this thing. Yep.
I know that we use session with passwords on our side to make sure that everything is configurated. When a user enters a password in the browser and then is sent to us through the form, isn't that still just being sent to the text? Would it be possible that you can send the password that way?
Yeah, we don't be okay. So the question is, for those of you watching later in time, so the question is, isn't that information being sent over as plain text? And that means it's like it can be intercepted. Well, this is why we use HTTPS secure. The reason that we hash isn't man-in-the-middle attacks, by which I mean isn't because somebody you went to Prado and you saw Prado Cafe and you saw Prado Cafe 5G and you logged into 5G because that seems like more, but really it was just some dude's computer who was passing you off to the internet and just sniffing all your traffic when you go on. The Google man-in-the-middle attacks later if that doesn't make sense. But the idea is that the password hashing, the real attack vector, is somebody getting our database. And that means that their passwords will be, that if someone gets the database, I still want them to be unable to log in as that person. Okay, so now we have that. Users data helpers authenticate user, which returns a promise, which means, and then found user. What we're going to do here is just that. Let's just do a console.log of our found user, right? And according to this, we have that user. Cool. What do we want to do with that? Probably, I want to say res.cookie user ID is found user.id. And I want to say, hey, if found user right? That's all we're doing right now is just making sure that there's a person with that particular thing. I'm going to set up this. I'm going to preserve the log. Joel at joel.joel, password JOEL. And what we should be able to see here is nothing. Oh, that's because I'm on the WS. I made a post to login. 302 found. Set cookie. Cookie is user ID alpha1234 Zulu. Cool, cool, cool. So now we have a person. And what we're able to do, should we have like one, how about this? We're going to do like one totally different view for a logged in user. Which basically says, well, for starters, yeah, that'll be fun. I'm going to say here, we have all this stuff, and I'm going to say if locals.user. And what this gives me is if I have a user that has been sent on the template, then I will do this, else I will do this. And this is a safe way of doing that. The reason I said locals.user instead of user, actually, let's find out. Is that what I always say of movies? Show, don't tell? Okay. Here, maybe we'll just do a p tag with json.stringify user. So what would happen here if I didn't say locals? Does anyone guess what's going to happen here? Well, I guess we'll find out. It's mad. User is not defined. Locals is defined though, so I'm going to say locals.user, and what's going to happen here is it now just says like, hey, does the locals, all the variables that we have available to us in the template, does it have a variable called user? If not, do this. It's like template vars, yes. So this is how we can tell on the index side like whether a template var exists. What I'm going to do here is that I am also going to create a kind of a login to get a user. But first, get status, get add all the dots. Yeah, because, yeah, totally a thing. Get add lib, get commit, added login, check. Right. So now I'm going to say, I actually want to check to see if that person's logged in and then add them to the template vars. The way I like to do that is set up a middleware. app.use. Does anyone know? So who's written a custom middleware of their own before? Here, anyone in Express written one there? They're really simple. I'm going to show you, in fact, what I like to call a useless middleware. Rec res next. So for instance, this, well, let's put it this way. This is a bad middleware. And what will happen is, when I make a request, nothing will happen. It'll be stuck. It'll hang. It's not going to be able to do that. If I say next, then what's going to happen is this. It's just going to do nothing. There's going to be no difference. What's basically happened is I was like, okay, let me take that. Oh, I got to grab that request. And I just kind of pass it on to the next thing. This is the Express middleware version of a useless box. Hold on. That's it. You just made a switch that just switched itself off. That's it. Never get tired of that guy. Okay. So what we're going to have this thing do, though, we actually do want it to accomplish something. I want it to take a cookie and I want to find a user, and I want to make that part of my variable. So I'm going to say users data helper dot get user by ID rec dot cookies dot user ID. Right? In fact, let me do a thing real quick that just says console.log authentication middleware, and I'm going to take a look at the rec.cookies. Okay. And if we look down here, we can see, oh, we have a user ID alpha1234 Zulu. Okay, cool. I can make, what I can do now is say data users data helper dot get user by ID rec dot cookies dot user ID, right? Dot then user, and then here's where I'm going to say rec dot res dot locals dot user equals user. This is a way that I can add this to the template vars all the time now. So now if I sign in, you'll notice there's nothing there. And why is there nothing there? Because we're now at the part where, hey, we have a user. So let's actually like say something about that, right? It should have a P. Oh, there's our user, right? Behold. I feel like I'm showing you a magic trick that you've like seen and had someone explain. Be like, okay, I guess I kind of know how that works, but I still like every now and then you miss some of the things. Anyone ever see Penn and Teller do the cups and balls? What they'll do, and it's really cool, is that they kind of show the simple cups and balls trick, and then they'll use red Solo cups and crunched up tinfoil. And then they'll do it, and then they'll switch to those red Solo cups for clear cups. So you can actually see every step what's actually happening with the cups and balls trick. And it's really kind of cool to see. And even then they do it so fast, you're like, wait, what happened? So we now have a user, right? Let me go to my application here, clear all. We're back to having all this stuff. I guess we should probably have, obviously this isn't the most friendly part here, but maybe we say, welcome, and then just user dot, what do we say it was, name? I feel like it was name. Or username maybe? Ugh, user.username. Who wrote this code? Right. So now if I Joel, and Joel. Welcome, Joel. Awesome. Okay, so now we have the ideal path. We should also include a logout button. And this is going to be its own little form. We should make a logout action here. Post a logout. Rec.res. I'm going to say res.clearCookie user ID, res.redirect to the slash. Right? And then here we're going to say method post action log out. Let's do some proper indentation here.
Drag your terminal down.
Yeah, sure. For those of you watching at home, the question was, can you drag your terminal down a little bit? And then I said yes. Button. I'm going to add some of the bootstrappy what's its class is button primary? Yeah. And we're going to say log out. Cool. So we have login and log out. We have an ideal path login and log out. We are at 9:56. Go grab coffee. to doing my job. Okay, so like I said, what we just covered was the ideal path. Do we have? I'm sure anyone we're missing will fill back in a moment. Ideal path, which means that we don't have anything to do really if someone fails to log in. Like we don't really let them know. Yeah? So what we're going to do is we're going to actually put errors into our code. Welcome to Face Tweet. So for instance, what I want to do here is maybe on the submit, above the submit button in my login form, I'm going to put a little thing here. It's going to be an alert. Is it a div alert or is it a p alert? Let me see. And again, I'm not saying the alert's the way to do it. If you don't want to do an alert, that's totally acceptable. Yeah, let's do p alert, div alert, and then here I'm just going to say that username, password, combination was not found. I capitalize things weird. All right, so now that's how this error looks. It should be an alert. Danger. There we are. And maybe, does Bootstrap now give us an icon set, or do they expect us to have an icon set of their own? Yeah. Oh, icons? Yeah. Cool, cool, cool. How to use, no, not that. Free. Okay, let's put that back in the index.ejs. I know I'm bringing an entire library for like one icon, but at the same time. And what icon shall we choose? I feel like sad tear, rolling. Oh, meh, rolling eyes. I like it. We know independence. All right. So now, it's not that clear. Why even be clever? Why roll your eyes at people if they're not going to notice, right? All right, let's pick something else. Let's go back to the emoji. Grin, squint. Grin, beam, sweat. Kiss beam? Kiss, wink, heart? Grin, tongue, wink. Yeah. Or maybe just the other, maybe the more solid eye roll will come through better. That might be a better choice. Does that look? No. There we go. Yeah, close enough. All right. So this is what we want to present if somebody isn't found. So which means that we're going to have to actually plan for that. So what I'm going to say here is if locals.login error. And okay. So now we don't have a locals.login error. And I might also do something that just says like, hey, value. Maybe if you type in something, well, maybe the password, I'm not going to keep the value, but the email I definitely will, right? I'm going to say here value equals locals.email locals.login email, or just an empty string. There we go. So what I'm going to do here in my server is I'm going to say, okay, if there's not the found user, so there is a found user, yeah, cool, user ID, redirect, else we're going to res.render the index again, and now I'm going to pass in some things. Specifically, login email is going to be email, login error will be true, right? So now basically what happens is that if we try to log in, we'll with something that's not there, we'll get an error. So if I say Joel, and my password is ASDF, so I know, oh, I did, my email address was this. I don't keep the password, but this lets me know that password username combination was not found. Okay, so that is, at least we have some way of saying like, yeah, stuff and things. Didn't want that. And then we can put in the right one and have, there, welcome Joel, log out. Okay, so that does well enough for that, because there's really only one kind of error we can have on a login, right? Even if you don't put in your email or password, we can just say like, hey, it wasn't found. Now, for registration, though, that's an entirely different problem, right? So I'm going to say get status, get add dot, get commit, added login error message. Now, I think I'm going to get rid of that console log. We're good here. So now there's a few things that we have to have. Among them, we need to create a way to create a user. Yeah? So function create user. It's going to have a username, it's going to have an email, it's going to have a password, right? Email and password. And okay, so here's how this one's going to run. This could go one of two ways. Either I'm going to create a user, and we're going to add it to the database, and we're going to be cool, or there's going to be a problem, right? So what are the problems that there could be? Username already exists. What's another one? Empty string. Email already exists. Password missing. And then maybe we'll say password doesn't fit these things. So what I'm going to do is, this is going to either resolve with a created user or reject with an error object. And that error object is basically going to say, hey, okay, what problem did I have with which pieces? So this is going to be a thing. For one thing, I'm going to make a get user by username function here. Username. right? So this is a bit complicated. I know everything I've been doing has just been like kind of fast. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, for checking to see if a username exists, I'm going to have to check to see, like, I'm going to have to check into the database to see if that actually exists, right? So what I'm going to say here is function get username errors. Username. Then function get email errors. Email. Let's do function get password errors. Password. Now, these two need to be promises. This one doesn't have to be a promise because we can do this synchronously. But what we're going to have is this. I'm going to say that create user is going to have const. I'm going to have an errors promise first. Let's do a little snap of the neck, a little crickety crackle. All right. So I'm going to say I'm going to want to run the username, get username errors, and the email and the password all at once, and just gather up all the errors. So I'm going to say const user. I'm going to make as many variables here as I can, just to like make it clear, at least to myself, what I'm doing. Username errors promise, and they're all getting really long names. Equals get user name errors. Username. Const email errors promise equals get email errors email. Const password errors. It might not be a promise. It won't actually matter whether it's a promise or not, which is kind of cool. Because I'll show you why in a second. But password errors, let's just say it's a promise. I don't even know if it's going to be a promise, but let's say it's going to be. We're going to treat it like a promise. And what we're going to say here is, like, you know, maybe we had a thing where it's like we actually kept track of your last 7 passwords, and you couldn't use one of those. That might be an error we have. So maybe it's going to be promise-like in the future. We're going to treat it like it's promise-like. So what I can say is const errors promise equals promise.all. Username errors promise. Email errors promise. Password errors promise. Do I not have the comma dangle? Ugh. So now I can say return errors. Oh, maybe const user or errors promise equals errors promise dot then. Errors. Okay, so I know that these are going to be, because of how can somebody tell me how promise.all works? Yeah. Okay, so comma dangle. I don't need the last comma, but I can have the last comma. And the nice part about me putting it there is that, let's just say that you committed this code, and I needed to add an extra thing to this. I'm going to put that, and then it's going to be my line. I own it. So I find that is better. So now I have errors. I can say const username errors equals errors at 0, const email errors equals errors at 1, const password errors equals errors at 2. No one said gesundheit. That's sad. All right. Or I can write, again, with destructuring, I can write this as const username errors, email errors, password errors equals errors. I'm going to say if username errors dot length is greater than 1 or greater than 0, or email errors dot length is greater than 0, or password errors dot length is greater than 0, well then, ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem, right? And I want this promise to reject. I can use throw, or I can just return promise.reject, which is what I'm going to do. Return promise.reject. And it's going to reject with an object that is username errors. Username errors. Come on, help me out here. Email errors, and last thing I said, password. Okay. So what this basically says is if I have any of these, then I know that something's wrong, and I'm going to return a thing with all of my errors. Otherwise, and I think I have to make the function rando. This should look familiar to you guys. Let output equal const alphabet equals A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, caps lock. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay. Alphabet. That. Do I have the right number of? I mean, I could, but also I did this instead. So if I get past the errors here, then I'm going to say const new user equals ID rando. Username is username. Email is email. Password is password. Users.push new user and return new user. So pretty simple, right? Like, I say pretty simple, I know. And I guess just return users or errors promise. Errors promise. Okay. Now get username errors. I'm going to say if username dot trim is just an empty string, return promise dot resolve with no username, or username required maybe, right? I'm going to say if, so now return find user by, is it username? Now we're turning a new promise. That's going to be like dot then if found user return username taken, else return an empty array. Makes sense. We're going to do some of the same things here. So if bang username right. Same thing here. I'm going to copy all this stuff. But we're, and then of course get user by email. But we're also going to want to say a thing that's maybe like, hey, if bang email.test, and then maybe just put it past some regex. Or maybe all we're going to do is just say, hey, if it doesn't have an @ symbol in it, or if email.index of the @ equals -1, return promise.resolve. Email must be in email format. Right? Passwords, oh my goodness. So many things we can do here. If bang password, return promise.resolve, password required. Yeah, we're good. If, in fact, maybe we'll say this, const errors equals da. If, so then we can do like, hey, we should make sure it has an uppercase and a lowercase and a thing, right? So maybe if bang password, so maybe if password dot length is under 8, errors dot push password must be at least 8 letters long. Is that all we really need right now? Like, I feel like doing more stuff would just be, like, I think this gets a point across, right? Like, we can add more conditions here, like must have a number, must have a thing, must have a what's, right? So we're just going to leave that there. Or maybe I'll do a quick one. Just if bang password dot test, and we're going to test it against, or no. If, so this is a regex that I'm going to make, and I'm just going to say that it has a digit. Has any number of digits that's greater than 1. In fact, I'll just have that. If it just has this dot test password, I'll say errors dot push password must have a digit. Or another way to put this is it has to have a number from 0 to 9. Return promise.resolve errors. Okay, so now we have all the logic we need to make this thing work on the other side. Let's go back to our server.js here. We're going to make a register route. Let me put this kind of below here. And what I'm going to say is just const username, email, password equals rec.body. Get them off the body. And then I'm going to say, I realized I probably need to add create user here. Yes. Second yes. Create data helpers. Create user, username, email, password. Dot then. So now we have a dot then, which will just be like, hey, maybe we have a created user. In which case, awesome sauce. What we can do is we can just say res.cookie user ID is created user.id. Also, over here, did I actually push that into the users table? Yes, users.push. Awesome. Right, res.cookie.user ID, user ID. Okay. And then res.redirect to /. This is cool. But I might have, but wait, there might be a catch. In which case, I'm going to have some errors. Ugh, errors, gross. So what I'm going to say here is res.render index. And I'm going to pass in register errors is errors. Register errors is errors, and I'm going to say register username is username. Register email is email. And then that's it. I've now caught all my stuff. Okay, whew. Let's go to the register form. We have to put names on all this stuff, as we all know, right? Name is email. And this is kind of where it gets fun. We have an email, password, and then we just need one more for type text username for take out the placeholders, name, username, and we don't need this thing. Okay. Now here's that. I'm also going to take out the placeholders here. Now, as much fun as this is, oh, and I don't need to check me out. For one thing, we need to have, if we want this to go to register, what do we need? Method post and actions register. But let's see what would happen if, let's see how it should look if we did have this missing, right? So what we should see is if there were some error to be had, I guess let's go back to bootstrap.com, and we go to the documentation, and we go to components, and we go to the forms, and we go down to validation. What we would need, we inspect here, is that this should have, so we have invalid feedback. So let's put that in, for instance, div valid feedback, password must be 8 letters long. They've changed this recently. Okay. Apply to student classes. So we might have form class was validated. How about this? Okay, they have changed this. Is invalid. Maybe used for the pseudo classes. Maybe we have to add it straight here. Class form control is invalid. There we go. Okay, so now we can have this sort of validation. Isn't that exciting? All right. So right. So what I'm going to do here is we are now passing these errors to the form, right? So we can say things like, for one thing, I have a username here. I'm going to put value, same thing I did last time, right? Which is that this is going to be locals.register username or nothing, so that people don't have to enter things again if they don't want to. And again, this is all, I'm doing all of the server side stuff. Register email or nothing. Okay. Then, so we have that. I'm going to take out the is invalid, but here I'm going to say, okay, so I just have to put that here. Here I'm going to say, if, or maybe I just make that this, register locals.register errors and locals.register errors password length. That means do we have an error for this? Then is dash invalid. I'm going to do this thing again. I know it's a bit wordy. I know there's ways to kind of make this better, but I'm going to do that same thing here. Name.length, and same thing in this form control. Only now it's email. So now everything's fine here. Let's actually see what happens. Joel, and nothing. Please include. Okay, now we have server side. We have a client side validation here, which is its own thing. I'm going to go ahead and, what is it? HTML5 form, no validate. Right. Just so I can do this all server side. Joel, no password. Okay. Oh, and I need to actually go through here. If I do have, I need to say something like if locals.register errors and so if locals.register errors, I guess. Then I'll say in another one here, locals.register errors .email for each error. And then we're going to put whatever the error is here, right? So now, ostensibly, email must be an email format because this isn't supposed to be email, it's supposed to be password. All right, try it again, continue, password required. Let me copy this stuff again. And yes, we could make a partial to deal with this better, but you know, sort of here doing this. Username taken. And one more. Email must be an email format. Awesome sauce. Okay, so at least I can say joel@joel.joel, right? Email taken. Fine. Okay, so that's cool. Jeff. And then let's leave one. All right. Welcome, Jeff. Well, that was a many of steps. That was a metric many of steps. But if we do Jeff at jeff.jeff here and his long password, then we are able to log in as that person again. So what do we get for our troubles here? We get a chance to be able to tell people exactly what it was that we need to have them fix at different things. We have a chance to have different kind of errors that we demonstrate. We have a chance to show people. Now, you'll notice I use form submission over and over again, right? Where did we time-wise? 10:43? Okay. I want to show you something really quickly. There is some back and forth about like, well, is that form resubmission thing a good thing, right? You guys saw post redirect get. You guys know, can somebody tell me what post redirect get is? Ever heard of that term? So the idea is that when you make a post, if it's successful, rather than just rendering something on the post, you're going to do a redirect, and then the get has whatever it's supposed to have, right? So what we can do here is we can say, the problem with that works really nicely for successes, but for errors, I don't know that works so great. Because what happens is that between the post and then the redirect, we can lose a lot of information. Well, where does that information supposed to go? So we could put it on the session, we could put it on anywhere else. So what we're going to do is use something called session flash. So express session flash. A flash message means different things from different times, and like that's totally a thing. But what we mean in this context is that a flash message is a message that we're going to send, and it's going to be kind of part of the cookies or the session or something. And as soon as we read it, then we delete it. When we look for it, then we get rid of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, So let me make sure this is that they mean what I think they mean. An array of flash messages of the form type info message. Express flash. Message, resident. All right, let's just see how this works. Now, mind you, I don't want to put this directly into my app. So I'm going to kind of put it into my app, but not into my real logic. I'm just going to put it on the side here, see what happens. So let's do npm add express flash. Or rec flash? I like rec flash. Error message, no errors, you're doing fine. Resurrect rect. Rec.flash. Okay. I think I'll use this one. Rec flash. npm install. It wants me to do cookie parser and session. Let's do npm add express session. Server.js. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this thing up. Const session equals require express session. We're going to use app.use session secret I am an open book. Frequently I suffer from delusions of being a book that is open. So app.use session and then const flash equals require rec flash app.use flash. Okay. Okay. How about locals flash? I guess I didn't need that particular one. All right. Now I want to see if I can get these. If I can send a flash message and get a flash message. So I'm just going to say on my index, or maybe in my login, or log out maybe? Sure. I'm going to say rec.flash person David. And we'll see if in my index EJS, I'm just going to kind of put JSON.stringify locals. And also in my server.js, in my get, I'm also going to say console.log rec.flash. Right, that'll give me some information. Okay. So let's go to welcome to FaceTweet. Right now we have the flash is empty. Hey, Joel submit. Flash still empty. Log out, and the flash has person David. And when I reload, Flash is empty. Okay, that means, and if I look here, I should also have person David. So I can say const flash equals rec.flash. If yeah, so I have those now. So what I can say on my register is rather than rendering all these errors, I can say rec.flash register errors rec.flash register username rec.flash register email. And now I'm going to say res.redirect to slash. Okay. Which means, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to say Joel, and no password. And now I have like all of these errors I can see, right? So now in my index.ejs, I can say, or my register form rather, now instead of locals.register errors, I can say flash.register errors. Flash.register email. Flash. Yes. Flash. Okay, let's try this again. Email address, Joel, password is, and now we have this thing again, but I can't, this will not be a form resubmission. It has all my stuff, but this was a GET request. And in fact, I'm able to say things like, even though there was a redirect, I can still do things like, say, in my server.js, that, hey, flash equals rec.flash, if flash.register errors, then res.status is going to be 400, right? Else if, and then maybe I'll do a flash.login error, then that should be a res.status 401. So let's try this again. Joel, password. Let's take a look at this and go network submit. And this page, this call to localhost, was a 400, even with a redirect. And that's the idea behind a flash message, is that it's a really short-lived message that we can carry like through a redirect. We can carry it until we ask for it, basically. And that's a way, if you're doing just a render to the post, that's not the worst thing that ever happened to anyone. But you can also use a flash message like this to move them through the next stage, so that you can actually, now, I am of the opinion, and this is an opinion, I'm of the opinion that your forms, like, I'm of the opinion that I don't like the redirect making a post. I don't like you pushing the redirect to get your post. I like you submitting the form to get your post. That's just kind of one of my things. Okay, we covered a lot of things. You're going to have this video. You'll be able to kind of watch it later. We kind of went in detail with like how to validate, how to verify. We used promises. We used the form validations built in Bootstrap. Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone have too many questions? Yep.
In don't fetch the other way on the
Mhm.
Doesn't make sense.
Right, but that's okay. But that's fine for login.
Yeah.
For login, you wouldn't tell them that the email address existed, but you can't have somebody. You need to actually tell someone why this email is not available to them. That's the thing, is that there's no two ways around it for this particular problem. For the login, yes, you can just be like vague failure, but for this you need to be a little more specific. I'm going to go back real quick and change this so that the login will also be rec.flash login email rec.flash login error true res.redirect to slash and in my login form here I'll be if flash.login error and flash.login email. So now we can have the same thing. Username, password, but I keep the email. And again, now this one is a 401. And 401 is unauthorized. 401 is I don't know you. 403 is I know you, but you can't do that. All right, I'm done. Can't do any more. Oh, had 4 minutes left. Thanks. All right, I will talk to you guys later. I'll have notes out.